I need to say a couple things about what's going on here. Some of you kind of know this. The Belleville Historical Society about 4 years ago began doing a lot of research on Charles King. There were 2 architects in Belleville over the years that have been very prolific and still have a lot of works that hasn't been torn down yet. And Charles King is one of them. Otto Rubach is the other. And I happened to run into James King, Charles's son, at Marvin's Camera Mart one night when he was in town from Colorado. And I mentioned to him that we were going to, at some point, we were going to do some things for his dad. And he said, well, let's get started. So we did. And out of that came 3 retrospective displays, which were almost half done, setting up in here again. A couple of house tours, and our efforts to find a Charles King house or building that we could set up as a mid-century modern architecture museum. And not just to Charles, but mid-century modern architecture in general. So there was one on the east end of town that we negotiated with, didn't work out, and I'm glad it didn't, because this is a much better house for what we want to do. We have a parking lot, we have exit signs and all those things we have to put in anyway. And the history of this house, very quickly, was designed in 1952 by King, was built 1952 to 1953. The Blaziers moved in 53 because of a lawsuit in the business that Mr. Blazier was in. He went bankrupt, the bank got the house, and a funeral home. A guy by the name of George Bricker bought it and converted it into a funeral home. It was a funeral home for over 50 years. Most recently, it's been leased out to a church. They were in here when we bought it last November. The idea was they wanted to stay for about a year, and we said, that's great. We can use the rent money and start building up some equity. But they never paid us a dime. So we get a dime rent from them. So after 3 months, we said, well, maybe it's time for you to move on. Being in a religious group, we didn't want to be really rude to them. So after about 4.5 months here, and still no money, they finally moved out, which actually worked out good because it forced us to get started doing things here. And so we started with the mechanicals, electrical work, plumbing work, heating, air conditioning. We have air conditioning finally, thank goodness. I don't know how it's going to work today, but so far it seems to be doing well. And we've got what we're doing here kind of broken into 3 phases. We are just about done with phase 1. This is all new here. We just got this done this week. They're going to come back in 4 weeks. There was another window section like that was there originally. They're going to come in and replace that there, and they're going to repair all the bad windows in the other window frame down here. So that will all be done. We put in 2 new furnaces. We've had a lot of electrical work done, and just a lot of front work, quite honestly. The outside's been painted. Some of you will remember it was kind of a coral pink, or what the heck ever color that was. Dave Wiesen volunteered his time and painted the whole house for us. And then we tackled this room in here first. We got it all done so that we could put up the exhibit. And now we're going to tackle, there's a portico chair that goes through here, and on the other side is an apartment, a studio apartment that was for the Blazers, Terry Blazer's wife's sister lived there, and she was the bookkeeper for the business, which that was her office in the room where the exhibit is. So we're going to get that done, and we're going to use it as an Airbnb, so we can start making some money off of this. But as an Airbnb with a mid-century modern house attached to it, we think it's going to be very popular. Not so much in the Midwest yet, but on the West Coast in particular, mid-century modern architecture is just crazy. We had a lady that donated to us a 1956 General Electric Wonder Kitchen. Some of you may remember that. It was the newest thing. Metal cabinets, you could get them in yellow, pink, turquoise, blue. And this was out of a house in Ladue. She wanted to update the house that she just bought, so she gave it to us. She inquired around in Bob's other hometown out in California. Someone was ready to give her $30,000 for the kitchen. But we've got it here. We will set it up eventually as a display. So it's in fantastic shape. So those are the kinds of things we're working on here. We want this building to be a museum. We want it to be a resource center. We're going to take a room down the hall here that we're going to make into a resource center for high school kids who want to pursue a profession of architecture, and maybe open it up as a conference area here also. But most of the house we're going to restore back to residential. This was a living room, that was a family room, the dining room was over here, and that's our goal, to get all that done. So we thank you for the high ticket price that you paid today. We're taking that as a donation to work this. Each of our phases we figure is going to take about 50 grand. And we were just about to reach 50 grand for phase 1. So as soon as we get this done, then we're going to start planning for phase 2. And hopefully about a year from now, this will be going, if everything works out well. One of the reasons we invested in this house, quite honestly, we as a historical society are interested in keeping our city intact. And we knew that out in this end of town, things were maybe not as good as they used to be 25 years ago. And we thought maybe that our presence here doing this might be a kick in the butt for the neighborhood, quite honestly. So I want you to know that that was a big part of our decision to purchase this house. We're trying to do something good for the West End. So any help that you can give us in any way, there's a number of ways you can help this project by, of course, donations, in-kind donations. If you know of anyone that does work that we need here, if they want to donate their time, and any services that they have would be great. Also, if any of you have any in your attic, any mid-century modern significant pieces that you might want to throw out at a yard sale sometime, we're trying to stock the house. And you'll see a few things around already that we've got. We're trying to stock the house 1950s, early 1960s. So we would be glad to take any donation of that kind also. If you have any questions when we're done with the concert, come and talk to me. We'll talk something now. I want to take a quick moment. All of our King Committee, who's here from the King Committee? Gary Blazier. These are the people that are working directly on this project with the Belleville Historic Center. We got a lot of things going on, but Gary, Margaret step in. Margaret is our Charles King advisor. She's on the committee. Is anybody else here from the King? Deborah's not here, is she?
No,
Gail and Deborah Wiekert and Kelly Arnold are the committee. We have other board members here. Linda Weisenstein, would you stand up as a trustee or just raise your hand? Roger Agnew, trustee. Jane Rinaldi, trustee. Jason Peck, trustee. Joan Braswell, trustee. Did I miss anybody? And then I'm going to thank my kids. My kids helped a lot with this. Some of them are here today. Austin did the program as far as anyway, without further ado, let's get to what we're doing. By the way, afterwards, I'll mention this again. We're going to have refreshments, a cocktail hour down the hall in what used to be the bedrooms, and you're welcome to stay as long as you want and look around. I even opened the door to the apartment if you want to peek in there. It's a mess, but it's in progress. We're working on it. Without further ado, the star of the day, Ida Mercer.